It's noon on Friday, October 13th, 2013. I am calling to order an emergency meeting pursuant of the Rutland Select Board pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Section 20B. Select Board will hold an emergency meeting related to matters that were not reasonably anticipated within 48 hours. And this is in regards to discussion of MDAR, Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Resources, special permit application for non-agricultural use. The board, per the APR agreement, is a co-holder and has been asked to render a decision to consider approval or not in signature for 80 Hillside Road, which is APR property. So I'm calling to order. We are Zoom only. So we are obviously being recorded on Zoom, and I assume we'll probably be put on YouTube at some point. I think that's usually how they work. So we have a full 5-member board. Austin and I are here in the TA's office, and Tom, Jen, Harry, and Paul are on Zoom. And we have additional residents and maybe town staff on Zoom as well. So thank you all for showing up and tuning in and sharing some of this time with us. So before us is an application for a special permit application for non-agricultural use on APR land. The APR process dictates how that happens. APR land is allowed and able to apply to MDAR for a special permit. MDAR is the Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Resources. They are allowed, landowners are allowed to apply for special permits, and then that goes through a process. The town for this particular APR agreement is listed as a co-holder through the Board of Selectmen. This was an agreement executed, I believe, in 1995 with the then existing 3-member select board. The process is that MDAR receives the request and asks for co-holders to weigh in their approval or not. If the town, in this case, the town is the co-holder. If the town votes to, if we, the select board, votes to approve, it goes to MDAR and they will continue their process. They do the evaluations of the land, of the request, of everything.
Did we lose you, Leah?
I was gonna say, I think we got a frozen
Yeah.
or something.
Paul, you're the expert. Correct that.
Oh, I think we lost Tamika too. Wonder if
Yeah.
Yeah.
Town hall's down.
Back.
And can you check the waiting room? Because I think there's some.
Technical difficulties. Yeah, we're back.
Okay, can everyone hear? Okay, sorry. I think we had internet issues up here. I'm not sure how much you guys heard. So we have the going into this, we have the opportunity to, it's for an event specifically for this weekend, and then most likely going forward, MDAR kind of has the authority to approve for however long. Within their policy states up to 5 years. I think this particular APR agreement, every APR agreement is different. I think this particular APR agreement is for either 2 or 3 years. I don't remember off the top of my head. As I was saying, that if the property were to change hands and the man's no longer were the owner, the authorization for this special request would cease, and the new landowner would have to apply, and the town through the select board would have to go through this process again also. Full disclosure, I've submitted through ethics. I have tickets to Juice Fest tomorrow. I paid full price for them. I don't see that as a conflict. I paid full price. This is parking for that event and other events going forward. It's not impacting the whether the event is held or not, and I have no financial gain or interest in it. So that's full disclosure. My ethics has been submitted to Anita. I have calls into the ethics office as well. So I don't know if the board has any conversation, questions. I know it was a lot of information kind of last minute, and so I'll open it up.
So what, go ahead. So I interrupted somebody. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Tom.
No, I was just gonna ask, so this was this because paperwork wasn't filled out properly, or why is this coming up now specifically?
Yeah, so I think it's the onus is generally on the landowner. The onus is on the landowner of the APR to submit the paperwork, and then that triggers to MDAR to then go through their process. We received this late. I think we received it late afternoon on Wednesday in the office here. I found out about it on yesterday morning, and then spent the day trying to get in touch with MDAR to determine why we were listed as a co-holder, how that happened, what that entails, and then what the next steps are. So
this is just a formality flaw, not a nobody's against it necessarily. It's just a paperwork issue.
So the conversation I think for the board is that I think we have a map of the parcel for which the application is looking at. It's a most generally used as a hayfield, I think. And so it's not really reading through the APR documentation. It's not necessarily up for the town to do the soil investigation and everything. It's basically the town, because we're listed as a co-holder, can say, yeah, if you want to park there occasionally, fine, we'll say to MDAR, go ahead and you can do your process. MDAR generally says that they would like up to 90 days to do their work and their review. They also, when I spoke to them and kind of was like pushing on the last minuteness of this, they said they also do generally very much try to work with the landowners to get their stuff done. They met yesterday and I believe have a decision, but they will not release their decision until we as a board forward our decision to them. They were asking for it by end of business today at the absolute latest.
Right. I mean, the Milk Room has been throwing events up there for years now, a few years anyways, and I've parked up there many times. So as long as the owner is okay with it, I wouldn't see a reason in denying it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Harry.
I've read through all the documents, and nowhere in there does it specifically prohibit this. And it doesn't cause any damage to the farmland unless you have a leaky oil from a car or something. But other than that, there's no damage to be done. And I was not aware that this was an APR issue for the town all the years they've been parking there. And I don't think anybody was. So as far as the parking situation, I don't have a problem with that. When I looked at all the documents that I've received, the only problem I have is timely notice. And we have to do something about that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm also agree with everything. My only other question is more related to, you kind of touched on it, Leah. How did the town end up as a co-holder, and is that something we intend? Is that like just for all this APR land within town, and is that something that we intend to continue to have the town be a co-holder? Are we able to change that? Do we desire to change that? Like, what's that piece?
So I've reached out to MDAR and asked specifically to have a larger conversation with MDAR and the board and town staff to better understand all of this process. Every APR agreement is essentially a deed, and everyone is different. And so this particular one was, when it was negotiated in the mid-90s, named the town as a co-holder. Some will name maybe the town in a land conservancy, or just a land conservancy, or a couple land conservancies. The state MGL I believe requires that it's not only the property owner, it's also a local entity is named as a co-holder as well. And some of that is because it's agricultural protection restriction, that if it were to be sold or transferred, that other entity has some additional oversight to kind of preserve the agricultural piece of the property.
We also paid $2,000 for this co-holder agreement as well. So I think it was probably offered in '95 to the town. And for $2,000 for this preservation restriction, the town received that co-holder deed, if you will.
The town paid the $2,000 or received $2,000?
I think we paid.
Okay. And is that something like, again, this is my inexperience with this type of property, but is this something that, you know, is the town via the select board the right other body to oversee this just in general, or is there a different, more appropriate one that for this piece of property, should we look into changing that? Do we have any others? Again, same questions.
Yeah, so that's something I think that we are also looking into too, right? So we've looked into a couple other APRs that we know of, and we did not see that we were co-holders. So I think from a town's perspective, we'd like to have an answer for how many other APRs or other properties we do have this similar arrangement to. So we don't have that answer. As to your question about if the select board is the right authority to be the co-holder, I think it's the town of Rutland. So just because you folks are the chief executive body of the town, it naturally became you acting through you that it was that this arrangement was made. But and I'm not sure how other towns do it that hold a similar co-holder agreement if it's through their, and just naming, for example, their Concom or their AgCom. I think we'd have to do a little bit more research and see what some others are doing as well.
And I think, Jen, those are all very good and valid points. And some of the conversation that I've asked to kind of continue with MDAR and bring them in with us as well as town staff and everything, so that we can have a handle, go through all of the APR land in town, which pieces the town is listed as a co-holder and what those co-holder responsibilities are, because some of those can be a little bit more nuanced than others. In talking with MDAR, APR is a 40-plus-year-old program, and it's kind of very individualized. It's obviously a bigger thing in smaller communities or communities of smaller populations, and a lot of things become reactive instead of proactive because there's just not the resources to be super proactive in things. So we have this in front of us right now, this one piece in front of us right now. And I think that opens the door to try to be a little bit more proactive, and whether that's going into policy and or looping in when appropriate, the ag accessory bylaw and everything, and trying to get a better handle on where the town is responsible for what and how.
Yeah, you just hit my feelings on the head, Leah, as we're being more reactive. Like I feel like I was not aware of this, obviously. So how can we keep the right checks and balances and make sure that things are getting handled ahead of time and not last minute if we have no idea they're even out there? So just trying to get a handle on that. And I realize that's not anything that's gonna, change tomorrow. We know now, and we can start doing some due diligence to try and make things a little bit better, but making sure that we don't lose sight of that once this goes through.
Yeah. And I mean, my conversation with MDAR yesterday, they seem very amenable and would be happy to meet with us and work with us to help us understand and to help us streamline processes and everything also. So it doesn't seem, and with a new full-time planner starting in a week and a half or a week or so, and more stable town staff and everything. Hopefully we can include staff. We now have a full-time assessor, where before we didn't have a full-time assessor, and we have a town administrator and a full-time planner and a conservation agent and these other pieces that I think can really come together and help us move this forward. And I think there's going to be some level of reactivity no matter what, but how can we limit that reactivity piece?
Yeah.
Paul, did you have something?
I was just gonna say, is the Mann family on board with this?
So we have the signed document from the Mann family authorizing the special permit. We have that. This MDR has that.
Okay, right.
Just as a positive note on this, looking through the documents, upon the sale of APR property, the town will receive 0.5% back on the sale proceeds. That's our share because we put in 2,000, which is 0.5%. We get that percentage back when the APR property, if and when it's sold. So in some way, we're in there for the long haul.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-mm.
So at this point, I think the board has had some conversation. I will see if there's any comments from the public, and then I would continue conversation with the board and entertain a motion. Is there anyone from the public that has anything?
So what's the language we need on the motion?
So I think the motion would be to, it sounds like the board is amenable to authorizing. So it would be to authorize, I would say either Austin or I, to sign on behalf of the board, the
Co-holder approval form for.
the co-holder approval form for, MDR's special permit for the Mann property at 80 Hillside Road as presented.
You get that, Tom?
Anyone?
You can say so moved.
So moved.
So, second.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any other conversation considerations from the board? I, again, want to appreciate everyone's time and thoughtfulness in this, and also know that I am trying to push this forward in a holistic townwide manner. And now that we know that this exists, what can we do moving forward? And that's with Austin and town staff and MDR and all four of you also, because I think it's a big thing that we need to be aware of.
Agreed. And thank you for all of your time and research and everything yesterday to bring us all up to speed.
Really? Yep.
So we have a motion and a second. Go ahead, Paul.
I'm all set.
Okay.
Yep, in favor.
So we have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call. So Paul,
Aye.
Harry,
Second, I.
Tom,
Galvin, I.
Jen,
Ledger, aye.
and Whitman, I. So we will sign that and send it off, send the communication off to MDR, letting them know of the board's decision. MDR still has the opportunity to render their decision, and that could still be a yes. It could still be a yes with conditions, and it still could be a no. We don't know MDR's decision, but this is the process. So once we hear from MDR, I will try to keep everyone updated if we hear back as well.
Okay.
Can I just make a comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to first thank the board for being responsive, but I also just want to stress, I think, some of the comments. I think, and hopefully applicants and any other interested parties, we spent staff time on this very last minute, and we shouldn't have to do this last minute from a staff time perspective. We engaged our interim planner. We engaged, Tamika spent some time on this as well. I spent time talking to MDR. Obviously, Leah spent time talking to MDR. We should respectfully ask all applicants to make sure they have everything in order well in advance, so we're not having to have the board. Thankfully, you've been responsive, but had you not been able to meet very last minute, this would have been a challenge, obviously, for this event. So I'm just putting it out there from a staff perspective, respectfully asking everyone, the general public and applicants, to make sure that the board has everything they need well in advance, so we're not doing this again. So just want to put that on the record.
And I want to kind of reiterate Austin's comments and thank the staff for the time and effort that they've put in on a lot of these issues. Kind of, it's a lot of time and last minute time, and it's not always easy to get answers last minute and make sure that we feel comfortable with the answers, that there aren't additional questions, and that we have the information that we need to move forward. So it's, you know, a lot in a variety of departments in town: assessor, planner, town administrator, select board's office. Tamika and Austin have done a lot, and it just kind of continues to go out. So I appreciate all the time and effort. And to reiterate Austin's comments, I'm trying to look for a process that we can streamline to take this last minute out of the equation. So, and I appreciate this board's amenability to doing the last minute meetings. A lot of boards are amenable. I've been on a couple boards that have not been so amenable, and so I think the public, the work that we're doing for the public is also should be appreciated, because not every board is so amenable to these requests, and the time and effort that we all spend to get caught up to speed should be recognized as well, because it's a lot of information. So I appreciate that. So
thank you for all your work, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Leo.
So if I thank you guys so much, if there's nothing else to come before the board, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I just have a question.
Go for
When
it.
do you think we can develop some type of, or when you will be able to present to the select board some type of process so we don't have to go through this again?
Yeah.
Like, when will it be on the agenda?
Yeah, so I think that's a very fair comment and a very fair question. The town planner, the new town planner, I believe, starts October 23rd. And there's a number of things on that agenda, that plate. But I'm hoping kind of within the next month, we can at least start having a conversation, coordinating with MDAR, to get something started. Some of it's gonna piece out if it goes the policy route versus amending bylaw, and I think it's probably going to be both and not either or.
Okay.
So, but I would like to start as soon as possible for sure.
Okay. Very good.
So I appreciate that comment, Harry. So
Yeah, and Harry, and we should, I mean, not just with APR, I think we should be looking at, my preferred route would be the policy route, because you think about our liquor licenses, especially some of the 1 days. I think that there should be processes that should be inserted in there, especially from a staff due diligence standpoint, making sure that we have enough time to adequately review and not kind of a last minute, especially when you're dealing with, and that's just an example, dealing with alcohol, right? I think we should be looking at all of our licensing and permit applications and the associated processes to make sure that there's enough time. Obviously things happen, right? And that's where things like Zoom meetings like today happen. But I think that we should probably take a look at those policies and make sure that we have enough time from a staff perspective to be able to adequately present you, the board, all the information you need. So we're not kind of scraping last minute for an approval. So
I have to,
And again, it comes down to just efficient and valuable use of staff time.
Yep.
You know?
and there's, you know, we just I guess a final comment on the permitting and licensing. We have a great system that we pay a decent amount of money for. That's our online permitting system that we're not fully utilizing. We should. And that would help with a lot of these processes and some of the challenges that we have. And also it's data that is electronically available for all of us to be able to log into and access. So I think internally we should be using that more, and I think it would help with your deliberations as well.
Okay, great.
thank you. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second the motion.
Harry and Paul with the second. I will, any comments, questions, concerns? Hearing none, I'll take a roll call. Paul,
Matt's and I.
Harry,
Second, I.
Tom,
Galvin, I.
Jen,
Ledger I.
and Whitman, I. Again, thank you all, and thanks all the participants on Zoom who were here middle of the day. I appreciate that as well. So thank
See you
you.
Monday.